Yeah, so I think we're just gonna keep this a bit more casual today. We're just gonna talk about art and labeling art and why we maybe just shouldn't do it anymore. So, alright, let's begin. Alright, so right off the bat, I apologize if the audio sounds kind of weird. I have my mic on top of my camera, but I also have my 3D printer here in the middle of a print. So, oh well, I think we'll all live, won't we? But as always, if you enjoy dads talking about all things nerdy, and I mean all things nerdy, movies, music, video games, tabletop role-playing games, books, what other types, I mean, manga, but that's under literature, debate me. But yeah, if you like what I'm spitting, if you're picking up what I'm throwing down, click the like and subscribe button, and that'll obviously encourage me to keep doing more. So let's begin again. So I don't know how many of you guys watch Skill Up. I would definitely say he's one of my favorite reviewers. The biggest reason of that being that I resonate the most with his suggestions and his opinions on things. I don't think I agree with him on all the Destiny hype and all the Destiny love, but you know, that's fine. People are allowed to have different opinions, even if they are wrong. So recently he got to go all the way to Japan and spend some time with the team producing Final Fantasy XVI. He got to spend an hour interviewing several heads of the team, including Yoshi-P himself, who's also famous for also being the face of Final Fantasy XIV itself. Also, another fun thing, if this channel ever gets big enough, you know that we're gonna start a guild, you know that we're getting a house, you know that we're throwing parties, you know that it's gonna be awesome, it's gonna be lit. So anyways, during this interview, Skill Up was asking him a question about making a game that deviated from traditional Japanese RPG standards, mechanics, and traditions. After seeing Yoshi-P's translator giving a response that let Skill Up know that he obviously, you know, kind of hit a bit of a nerve, the question was followed up as such. The thing that Yoshi-P, wants to get across is that when we are creating games, at least with our team, we don't go into them thinking that we're going to be creating JRPGs. We just go into them thinking that we're going to create RPGs. Yoshida explained in more detail how him and other developers that were in Japan didn't really enjoy the term JRPG as it started to kind of gain steam within the Western mainstream gaming community. This was around, 15 years ago, so we're talking the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 era. Quoting Yoshida again, for us as developers in Japan, the first time that we heard it, it was like a discriminatory term, as though we were being made fun of for creating these games. And so for some developers, the term JRPG can be something that will maybe trigger bad feelings because of what was in the past. Yeah, that's one of the most valid points I have heard in a long time. Like, I am more than guilty myself of using the term. I'm sure you can probably find some old videos of me just throwing it around, but it's something that I never thought of, and when I do think about it, I think that he's 100% right. JRPG, at the very least, is kind of a reductive term, if you really think about it. It really takes all the aspects of your game, the mechanics, the story, and all that, and it really just kind of distills it down to, like, right off the top of my head, those 5 things that typically make an RPG, or a JRPG, excuse me. Heavy on the text, turn-based mechanics, the management of a party of multiple people, which also includes making sure that they're outfitted, they are leveled up, things of that nature. A bit more of an emphasis on grinding as opposed to just, kind of playing through the game, but in that same vein, still having a bit of a grandiose story. Usually a group of people killing a deity of some sort. Oh, I'm supposed to be painting, not drinking. I don't know how many of you were around during the PS3 360 days. it was definitely a big boom and a big renaissance for Western game developers and just Western gamers in general. Like this was the first Call of Duty era, really. Before that, even on the original Xbox, that was Halo and all that, but Xbox 360 was when it really took over, like, the entirety of the Western world. And at the time, a lot of people, including American press and American developers, just didn't think that the Japanese game developers were innovating in any way, doing anything different, and essentially they just kind of reduced all their games to, anime teens that kill God. And for their credit, a lot of Japanese developers were trying a lot of different stuff that honestly, I would say aged better in those 15 years than a lot of other things that came out at that time. A lot of the Xbox 360 games that, people wax nostalgic about now, it's just that. It's nostalgia. It's not like these games had a lasting impact in any way. The first Nier game came out during this time. Lost Odyssey, and a whole bunch of just wonderful, wonderful, wonderful PS3 games that really pushed the limits of what we could do in terms of telling a story. But in the West, what we also had going on was the rise of the AAA prestige game. So your Nathan Drakes, your God of Wars, your Heavy Rains, your Call of Duties, things like that. I mean, that's where we first saw The Last of Us, and we all know where that's at now. And I think that is just kind of interesting to see how those two different approaches, especially in regards to the fact that trying to do more prestige stuff on the Western side just really pushed kind of the Western sensibilities of gaming forward, to the point now that Yoshi-P himself said that he wants Final Fantasy 16 to appeal to a wider audience. So he is thinking Westerners in mind. And I now that I say that out loud, I kind of have mixed feelings about that. That feels very weird to say. And also at the same time, it doesn't help that like American developers and American press themselves were openly just shitting on Japanese developers and Japanese games, saying that, the West is better than you with gaming and all this other stuff. And it was just, it's so cringe in hindsight now. Like the whole thing just seemed like a big dick measuring contest, and I'm sure to a lot of those people it was, because during the PlayStation 1 and my Battle Sisters are okay, but during the PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 era, I mean, Japan were the ones that were basically pushing the bar, pushing the technology forward. So yeah, it seems like the second that America had a chance to catch up, they did what we Americans do and act like we were in first the whole time. So all of this reminds me of in 2020 when Tyler, the Creator, won his award for Best Urban Album, Best Urban Music. So after Tyler received his award, and he was doing one of those backstage presser interviews, he said this.
On one side, I'm very grateful that what I made could just be, acknowledged in the world like this. But also, it sucks that whenever we, and I mean guys that look like me, do anything that's genre bending or that's anything, they always put it in a rap or urban category. Which is, and I don't like that urban word. It's just a politically correct way to say the N-word to me. So when I hear that, I'm just like, why can't we just be in pop? Why can't it just, you know what I mean? So I felt like half of me feels like the rap nomination was a backhanded compliment. Like, my little cousin wants to play the game. Let's give him the unplugged controller so he could shut up and feel good about it. That's what it felt like a bit. But another half of me is very grateful that the art that I made could be acknowledged on a level like this when I don't do the radio stuff. I'm not played in Target. I'm in a whole different world than what a lot of people here listen to. So I'm grateful and like,
And to me, this feels very similar to the sentiments that Yoshi-P was talking about as well, in regards to just having what is essentially your art, your creation, labeled a certain way, especially when, whether or not you wanted to, you had other inspirations or other things in mind when making it. This is a very common comparison I've seen a lot of people make, but I mean, by many standards, Dark Souls isn't technically a JRPG. It's made by a Japanese team, and it's a role-playing game, but because of that heavy emphasis on action and timing, and the way that its story is, I guess, not told, like jazz, it's the notes that's not being played. Oh, that should be the new tagline for Elden Ring. It's like jazz. But anyways, by all gamer accounts and standards, Elden Ring and Dark Souls wouldn't be typical JRPGs, but they are. And it seems like we've reached a point now where people are trying really hard to find a way to label not just like games and things like that, but just creations in general. Vampire Survivor, when that came out, I remember very many debates and discussions about, is it a bullet hell, a bullet heaven, a reverse bullet hell, like what do we call this game? Personally, I like bullet heaven. It has a nice ring to it, but why are we worried about that? If anything, I guess calling it a Vampire Survivor-like makes more sense, because that's how we ended up with Metroidvanias and Souls-like, and I guess, you know what, in a way, that might be a better way to describe different games and subgenres than calling it something like a JRPG. If we're going to compare it to anything, compare it to, I guess, a game that came before it. So Final Fantasy 16 is now a Final Fantasy 15-like with a few tweaks to it. I mean, that's the best that I got right now. I'm new at this. But also, just as a reminder that this issue isn't isolated to just gaming in the music world, we also have the case, the recent resurgence of Ke Huy Quan. So, during the 2023 Screen Actors Guild's, Ke Huy Quan made history by being the first Asian male to win Best Actor for his performance in Everything Everywhere All at Once. It is something that he quite honestly didn't really know if it was ever going to happen. He was in the Goonies and he was in the Indiana Jones movies back in the day, but after doing those roles, he couldn't really find much work outside of doing just stereotypical Asian roles. And that really bummed him out, so more or less just kind of quit acting up until recently. He saw that there was starting to be a resurgence of better Asian representation thanks to movies like Crazy Rich Asians and Shang-Chi. So when given a chance to do something that was truly representative of his experience and his culture, in a metaphorical sense, of course he pounced on it. And in his speech, he said this.
When I heard this, I quickly realized that this moment no longer belongs to just me. It also belongs to everyone who has asked for change. When I stepped away from acting, it was because there were so few opportunities. And now, tonight, here we are, celebrating James Hong, Michelle Yeoh, Stephanie Hsu, Hong Chow, Harry Shum Jr. The landscape looks so different now than before. So thank you so much to all of you in this room and everyone who contributed to these changes.
So what can we really take from all this while I finish up these mimic teeth? We need to listen to Yoshi-P, we need to listen to Tyler when they talk about this stuff. they're the ones creating the things that we consume. I think that they would have a better idea of what to call it or what they want the experience to be than we do, the people who hadn't consumed it up until the last point of its production, the live point. Second off, I think we really need to just like calm down on trying to put everything into a genre or a subgenre. Now, obviously, that's not going to be completely possible because, you know, racing games, action games, fighting games, like, that's all fine. But when we are sitting here debating on what type of subgenre should we call something if it is more inspired by Metroid than Dark Souls, but it's also got a bit more of a Call of Duty to it, I can understand wanting a way to quickly describe something to someone in regards to, hey, this has never been done before. What's the quickest way to really describe it? Once again, going back to extraction shooter, you get in, grab stuff, and then you run to the extraction point and get out alive. Yeah, that makes sense, but that also requires like a lot more gamer knowledge and a lot more knowledge of genres and subgenres in order for it to really click. So, do I have the answer for this? Of course not. Of course not. This is a systemic issue, not just within games, but also within like movies and just art in general. So, of course, you know, just some 30-year-old YouTuber is not gonna know the answer to that. But I think that we as a community, we as, you know, gamers can probably do a bit more than try to argue against the creator of a game saying that his perception of the definition of his own game is wrong. And while I haven't seen a ton of it, I've seen enough that I felt the need to add to the discourse, and that shouldn't be necessary.
So this is the end of the video now.
Thank you for watching. I just wanted to do a quick, short, little hot take. As always, I have more videos that are planned. If you want to see more, like, subscribe, do all the stuff, share, leave a comment, like, unlike, then like again, and then don't, I mean, I guess dislike if you want. Not everyone's gonna like my opinion, but whatever. But yeah, no, just thank you for taking the time to watch this, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!